my life, I very much felt like a connection. I felt that when I heard, whether it was stories about him, to Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev, I always felt like the stories I heard about him, he was called the Sadiq of Klal Yisrael, the protector of the Jewish people. He always was Malam Mitzvos, always looking to see good in Yidden. That was Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev. And when I discovered much later in my life that I was born the day he was nifter, I felt good about it. Rabbi Yitzchak was his Yahrtzeit, his Chafei Tishrei, and who knows the Cheshbonis of Hashem, but I felt like his Torah and his stories mattered to me. Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev's Talmud was the Bas Ayin. And I'll tell you, interesting how neat that is. I did not know the Bas Ayin was a Talmud. We had a free day in Eretz Yisrael, and we took my two boys, we went to daven all day. And I'm very into, when you daven at Kfarim, don't prepare what you're davening for. Whatever comes, there's certain Kfarim bring out different things. People are too they stifle themselves. I'm davening for this, let it flow. And all day we had different Kfarim, and the one that somehow brought things out of me was the Bas Ayin's kever. Now, it's in a cave, that could be all different factors, but I was very, very much nisragish at the Bas Ayin's kever. And I only found out later that he was a Talmud of the Barditchev, of Rabbi Yitzchak. That was his Rebbe, the Kedushas Levi. He was a Talmud, he was a Rav in Ostrov. He was a Rav for 40 years. He was a Rebbe for 40 years. And when he was 65, he moved to Tzfas. He moved to Eretz Yisrael at the age of 65, which was a Chiddush Nifla, because he gave up his whole Chasidus, and it seems like he had quite the following. He was quite a known Rebbe. He was a Talmud of Rabbi Yitzchak Barditchev. He was a known Rebbe, and shockingly, he left it all. He mamish left and went himself to Tzfas. It was only later that he became quite a big Rav in Tzfas. At first, he was in Tzfas and left in 1930. So he was born mid to late 1700s. He was born and went to Tzfas at the age of 65 in 1830, and he went to Tzfas. So the Bas Ayin, that's the connection to Rabbi Yitzchak. I do want to sing the Barditchev and Niggin. I've spoken to people, I've not been Zeichen. I love all of us. One day we should always have to learn his Torah. It's not stam when we hear about Sadiq, they have Torah that he left us. I was Zeichen to learn one piece in my life at his kever. I'd love to learn to see his farm. I only became aware. I could tell you that somebody had told me to go to his kever. I felt very like Shtai, and didn't even know he was a Talmud of the Rabbi Yitzchak. It's something, there's certain tefillas, the dafka, I was very nisragish to daven for. It's a question if he had any kids. It's not clear if he might have had two daughters, or if Teres Young, he might have had no children. It's surprising it's not known. There were a lot of, for sure, left no children. That seems clear. There's nobody today who's a descendant of the Bas Ayin, which is a big deal that that Yidden are gathered together. For a Yid who's the Avas Yisrael peace, I want to say one story that I spoke to somebody who was more into a Svarim, told me a Maisa. I want to share the story with you because, again, in that line of people loving Yidden and appreciating Yidden, he was in Eretz Yisrael, and it's very relevant to tonight, to last night, to this Vashaiyan, as you'll hear. He went to Eretz Yisrael and he gave up everything. He gave up his whole Hasidus. He had some sort of Melucha, and he gave it up. And he was having a tough time. Eretz Yisrael's nickname to be Yisurim, and it seems it wasn't so simple to him. Why am I here? Maybe I should go back to my Hasidim, go back to what I had. And he was clearing, and it seems what changed the Bas Ayin's mind, and I heard this from somebody who's into this, to the Sefer, the Bas Ayin, and what changed his mind, so right about now, you'll hear very similar. They started in Eretz Yisrael, they start the same Talmud, I believe, Zayin Cheshvan, is that true? We started last night the same Talmud, I believe they start Zayin Cheshvan. And he had planned, really strongly was thinking about leaving Eretz Yisrael. It's so it seems. And he heard, all of a sudden, he heard like a lot of noise in Tzfas, and he sees people on the rooftops like scurrying around, and he asks them, what is going on? So they said, we're clearing the rooftops. They had small houses in Tzfas, and they would do a lot of work on their rooftops. They had a lot of items. The Gemara speaks about that Rav Tashmisham was b'chatzer, that in the old houses of old, people didn't cook in their houses, you cooked in the courtyard. Most of the activities, like Hilchos Erevin, most of the activities people did in their courtyard. In Tzfas of old, people had small houses, and they did a lot of stuff on their own. And he sees Zayin Cheshvan, everybody's scurrying around, and the ladies are bringing stuff inside. So he's like, why are you bringing it inside? They said, what do you mean it's going to rain? He looks up, it's a bright blue sky. He says, what are you talking about? What do you mean it's going to rain? And they said, we started saying Talmud today. We asked Hashem for rain. Of course he's going to listen to us. And he saw incredible emunah, like an emunah chushas, that everybody's clearing the rooftops. We asked Hashem for rain. Like it's Bashas is going to say, yeah. There was like a hanacha by the Tzvas Yidden. It said that from that day and on, like it changed. He made it. He saw emunah like that. He's not leaving the Yidden, and it changed his whole stay in Tzvas. And he became quite a big Rav in Tzvas. There are many stories with his shul, different gzeiros he averted. There's all different stories about the Bas Ayin, but it seems like that story was a turning point. And of course, it's like reminiscent. Somebody who sees Dakos, it's not. We could see such stories. It supposedly have changed the Bas Ayin's life. I know by Bahram that if I need one story, I know if I see one good thing about a guy, one story, I start seeing the bar in the floor, and that's what happens. If you have a friend that you need to change your view of a guy. If you have one good ma'aseh, you start seeing thousands of things. It changes. Oh, he's that. I saw a Bachar in Yeshiva went to a lot of Yisurim. I once caught him. We had a rabbit, a big Zaftika rabbit that was like a moifus. It lived by us for years, and Menachem knows the rabbit. You ever saw a bigger rabbit in your life? I never saw a bigger rabbit. I don't know. It's not like normal. It was there for years. A Bachar bought it as a baby, and then it just stayed on the campus for years. It was like my son, Yisrael Meir, fed it and took care of it many Shabbos. It was the yeshiva's rabbit. One day I caught this Bachar. A Bachar went to a lot of tzaros and wasn't so part of the yeshiva. And I caught him behind the dining room feeding the rabbit in his mouth. I said, what do you do? He said, I feed him every day. He became my Rebbe, this Bachar. I saw many big things about this guy after. But I needed to see him feed. A lot of times, if your view, all of a sudden, it gives you new eyes on a person. He at first thought, what am I doing here? Let me go back to my old city. I was a Rav. I had a big shtat. He saw the Yidden say the same Talmud, and then they're cleaning off their roofs because they daven Hashem. Of course, there's a pashtus. Tati is going to send rain. It changed his view, and then he was Zayche. He saw big things. So there's a practical lesson to us all about seeing good on Yidden. There's a practical eitzah that if you can find something, you'll find more, because already it changed your view of a person. You have a certain better view of a person. You start noticing then. You could have one maisa, a guy in shul you're frustrated by. You see one maisa, one zach catch something good. You'll already start seeing many, many more things. So I wanted to ask Yitz to sing the Barditcher Niggin. Let's together sing. It's the Bas Ayin's Rebbe. We have a song from the Barditcher. So if you could start for a tzaddik, the Bas Ayin tells us we're obviously trying to be mekasher to a tzaddik. So what keeps us having tzaddikim? What allows us to keep it tzaddik? If we serve Hashem mitzvah nashma mother pivus sasav kiduni libay rechak mimeni pasuk in Yeshaya, and the einish is misas tzaddikim. So what's shaykh is serving Hashem by road to be tzaddikim, but tzaddik, to be in the environment of a tzaddik, is to touch eternity, is to be around relevance. I have a person who's a mentor of mine, and he lost his Rebbe. He had grown up being in the yeshiva of his Rebbe as a student, as a koil guy, and then as a Rebbe in his Rebbe's yeshiva. I asked my mentor, and I meant to ask him advice. I was asking him like halachic shayla, can I be menachem you on the loss of your Rebbe? I was asking, like in halacha, can I say I'm Akim Menachem? He took it as I was saying, could I come from, like I was being arrogant, to be accused of such things, and he thought I was being Baal Gaiva, like you're asking, could I be, like I'm going to be Menachem you? So he said, you don't understand my loss, you can't be Menachem me. You're misunderstanding what I was trying to say. So he said, you don't understand my loss, you can't come for me. So I said, explain to me your loss. I wasn't going to correct what I said. I was an opportunity to get into the yeshiva, and I'd see a car drive past. I thought the guy is so unfortunate. I was at the center of the world. I'm around relevance. He's around the servant of Hashem, relevance. He said literally a car would pass the yeshiva. It's like jokes on the guy. People would walk. I felt I was at the center of the world. Anybody not in this building, like the people in the Lower East Side where Moshe was alive, they laughed, take your houses, your lawns, you're all missing out. We're next to Moshe. He felt next to his Rebbe. He said, I was at the center. Do you know the feeling? There's no place on earth I'd rather be. Yeah, there's somewhere kids have FOMO. Adults, we know how to hide it better. We all want to be at the matzah. People are going to be upset they weren't here tonight. We're at Yankees' house. You want to be at the place where it's, the place. And he said, you know what it means? There's no place on earth every day I'd rather be. And I'm feeling like, I feel so bad other people miss this. He said, I don't feel that way. He said, I see cars pass by the day my Rebbe died. I talk to here. So he told me this. I literally, be menachem. We certainly can't. But that nekuda, that it's Sadik's relevance, so it's tempting to be in the presence of Sadik. What could happen and the danger, because it's relevance and important, is the person not tap into real things. In the excitement of being near the tzaddik, it's shaykh for a person to then say, to just serve Hashem by rote, say he is premius hadavar, the connection, and you're like along for the ride. So it can end up being very chitzonistic. You're there, you can go to Tishem, you're in the presence, you can even come to Minyan. The tzaddik davens, and we all are sitting in his presence. It's a misuse of tzaddikim. But tzaddik shows that it's possible to connect to Hashem and inspires. I came here tonight and I said, Rav Yankee, you're awesome. And I was corrected brilliantly, you're awe-inspiring. Awesome is about you. Awe-inspiring is you cause us to be better. Your kindness makes us kinder. The yahrzeit of the tzaddik is to be awe-inspiring, not awesome. That the tzaddik's avodas Hashem tells us that we also can connect to Hashem. If we serve Hashem by rote, the tzaddik, you do your things, then Hashem takes away tzaddikim. Now, when He takes away tzaddikim, we have no choice but to create relevance ourselves. We want tzaddikim, and we make sudas and yahrzeit sudas for tzaddikim, understanding that it's shaykh to form a great kesher to Hashem. And that pushes us and inspires us to create a kesher, our unique kesher to Hashem. Years ago on a Thursday night, somebody asked Reb Miller about Rebbes. And he said very cryptically, they're a stepping stone to Hashem, and sometimes it stops there. Those were the words, came out a quote of what Reb Miller said. The yahrzeit is that there's a person who was extremely mekurv to Hashem, had an avodah, he had a Rebbe called Bar Ditchman, had an avodah of avodas Hashem, and we celebrate, we gather together to celebrate this tzaddik, with the understanding that we're shaykh to a kesher, that each of us is shaykh to a kesher to Hashem, and is mechazik the inyan of a kesher to Hashem. And I want to close, and we all have to run. Yankee has other things, but I want to say that it says Yitzia Sadiq min ha'ir asaroshem. That's very troubling. I didn't think about the Yitzia leaves a roshim. Why not talk about when he's there? Let me talk about the Yitzia. Obviously, when something's there, you don't appreciate it, and it leaves you appreciating more. There has to be more than that. It has to be. Why would the Torah speak l'chatchila that way? Speak tzaddik b'ir asaroshem. In a certain way, when the tzaddik's gone, his roshim's more. There is a bechin of Yitzia tzaddik near the Spasem speaks the sound. I looked inside this year. I did not find which piece. Somebody who's a Baki in Spasem told me over. I'm not sure which one they're referring to. But you'd see a tzaddik near asaroshem in a certain way. When the tzaddik's there, so you're able to get the physical connection to the tzaddik and to the ideals that he stands for. When the tzaddik's gone, all that's left is the eternal part, that which he stood for. In a certain bechina, you'd see a tzaddik. When he was there, hu haida, hu ziva, hu adara. When he leaves, what do we have left is the ideals that stand forever, the eternal parts that we still keep. So we have a Yahrtzeit for the Bas Ayin. I can't speak and tell the people who study the Svarim could say what he stood for. I can't. I can't say what the Barditcheva stood for, but he was a Talmud of the Barditcheva, and the stories we know about the Kedushas Levi, and the stories we know about the Bas Ayin, tremendous madregas of Abbas Yisrael, madregas of seeing good in Yidden. See good in Yidden, to learn to really speak good about Yidden. Speak good as specific Yidden, so we speak good about Yidden and Klalis, but not our neighbor, not our friend, not our shulmate. To see good in Yidden, speak good, Chassidus, Litvish, Svard, all our good achas, we're all one. Speak good about Yidden. See positive in Yidden, speak good in Yidden. So Shataka could be an Eloi for his precious Nesham de Bas Ayin, and Shataka could be a big, tremendous chus for Klal Yisrael, that Yidden care about Sadiq, and we ourselves proclaim that it's Shaykh to have a kesher to Hashem. We could daven Hashem Shemei Atfilah, and the Tzaddik is the lesson to us all that we can connect. It's the main question. Risham hold you can't connect to Hashem. The fishim milayu v'loimatzim kiminu. Risham hold you can't, and Tzaddikim are not just hold, they teach that one could be mekosher to Hashem. Yahrtzeit shbi Hashem's will b'schus, gathering together and appreciating the p'tir of Tzaddik and the life of Tzaddik. We should be mizaka us all. Tremendous bracha in our lives, and the ikar bracha for us and our families. Should we zeich in a very practical sense to be mekosher to Hashem, to have a kesher, close kesher to Hashem for us and our entire mishpachas.